do you think about when you think about somebody being an introvert? I've given this a lot of thought since we scheduled this show. And usually, when I picture someone who's an introvert, I think about someone who's quiet and kind of shy and not really sure what they want to do or say. But then again, they might be and just not want to do it. And so we don't really know what their story is with a lot of introverts. But our Debbie guest tonight says that introverts make up half of the world's population. If you count yourself in that group, then Steve Friedman will help you figure out what you can do to apply and discover your introvert strengths to become a winner at life. Steve is the award-winning author of The Corporate Introvert: How to Lead and Thrive with Confidence. He also posts weekly blogs on a wide variety of topics related to introversion. So let's get Steve on the screen as part of our Debruary today. Hey, dude.
Hello, how are you? Happy February. Thanks for
Yes, it
having me
is.
on.
I'm happy that it's almost over.
I understand.
Yeah, it's been really good, but it is tiring. So
Mm.
let's get started now. Let's talk about you wrote this award-winning book. I thought the title was that pretty interesting. What made you decide to write a book about introversion?
Well, this is my second book. My first book was more of a memoir, and I realized as I started to write that book a few years before that I had this thread of introversion throughout my life. I knew I was an introvert at this point. I mean, I was in my late 40s at the time, so I knew I was an introvert, but I really didn't know that throughout my entire life, even when I was a little toddler, that introversion had a major impact on me, many negative things and many positive things. So after that book, I really looked back and I thought there's more I want to do in this space because I think there are a lot of introverts out there. 40 to 60% of people roughly are introverted, and I spent most of my working career in corporate America, and so many of those scenes are pretty extroverted culturally, as is general society. And I really felt like the experiences I had were very common with other introverts. But we are also, I would call, the hidden half. There's not a lot of introverts that are raising their hand saying, "Hey, I'm an introvert," especially
Right.
not in the corporate setting. And yet they're finding those same challenges on how to be a leader or how to feel comfortable to contribute in meetings or networking. And so I felt I have a story to tell and experiences. And I talked to a lot of other introverts that have gone through that same path. And so my objective with the book is really to help other introverts accelerate their own journey so they can be proud and authentic as a leader and a participant in the corporate community.
So are there only introverts and extroverts, or is there something in between that we don't really hear too much about?
That's a great question because I think there's a lot of misinformation about that whole thing. But the way I look at it is there's a continuum. And on the far end of one side is introversion, and on the far end of the other is extroversion. And in reality, we all move along that continuum at different points of time and different places, depending on our mood, depending on who we're with, right? So if I'm with people I know in a smaller group, many people would think I'm an extrovert. I'm very sociable. I enjoy meeting people, talking to people in those kind of situations. If I'm at a big cocktail party, they're going to definitely see that introverted side of me because that's not really my comfort zone. And extroverts as well, people that are generally considered to be extroverts, are more outgoing and sociable. Also, most of them have that introverted side to them. They like to do hobbies by themselves every once in a
Yeah.
while. It's just different. But generally, I would certainly say I sit on that introverted side. But in different situations, I think we all move along that continuum.
So I'm trying to figure out, how did you figure out that you were an introvert? I mean, how do you know it's not just like, okay, well, I'm in a situation like you just described, and
Mm.
I just don't want to be bothered with these people. I just don't like it here. These people
Well,
suck. Maybe, I mean, how do we know it's not something just as basic as that, and that instead, we're an introvert?
Yeah, I wish that it were as simple as saying, "Well, I'm an introvert, and so this is how I feel, or this is how I want to feel comfortable doing things." But, things are generally not so simple. Introversion is a big thread in my life and many other people's lives. But, some people are shy, which is not necessarily the same as introversion. Some people have social anxieties, not necessarily the same thing as introversion. Some people have all three of them and manage them in different ways. I first heard of the term introversion probably my late teens. And when I was in my early 20s, just starting into corporate America, and we had a team building sort of thing, and we did a quiz, probably a Myers Briggs analysis, and it said I was an introvert.
Hmm.
So the problem that many of us have when we have those same sort of tests is that they don't really help to explain that. So they say, "Yep, you're an introvert. Here's some qualities that many introverts have. So go off and do your thing and figure it out by
Go off
yourself."
an introvert.
Yeah, do that. And so that is a huge problem for many of us. Certainly it was for myself, because I walked out of that meeting saying, "Okay, I'm an introvert." Most people that were extroverts in that meeting were, jumping up and down, they're high-fiving, they're happy that they're an extrovert, and they're kind of looking over at that introverted side of the workshop and saying, those poor people, and many introverts, and myself included, might tend to look at things like a dictionary or a thesaurus. Another huge problem. After the show tonight, I would urge people to go look in any dictionary, online or thesaurus, and it's horrible words. It's not just unsociable, but it's loner, narcissist,
Oh
icicle,
my God.
wallflower, very, very negative words. And that's in today, in 2022, that you have those kind of terms. So for people that hear that label, feel it applies to them, and then they do that sort of research, it can be extremely demeaning. And many introverts have low self-esteem, not because they're introverts, but because of this social stigma that makes us feel like we're different and that we're second class. And so
Yeah,
it
like
took
something's
me.
wrong with you.
Exactly. And I felt that way when I was a little kid. Something's wrong with me. My three older sisters are extroverts, very outgoing. I certainly stood out as something different, and I didn't know why. But even when I knew there was a label that kind of applied to me, I didn't really understand it until I was probably in my mid 40s. And I heard a podcast, and then I read a book called Quiet by Susan Cain, which is kind of the Bible for introverts in the 21st century. Fantastic book if anybody's looking to learn more about introversion. And it really opened up the world, and it made me realize this is not a negative, this is a positive, and it's not something to hide, but something to champion. And I thought that is fascinating and turns the table on my entire life. I need to learn more about that. That really changed my life.
You mentioned earlier that there's some strengths that introverts have. What are those? And then how would you, if you have, you are an introvert and you want to find out your strengths, how do you do that? So it's kind of a two-part question.
Sure. So I think it's so important. It's a great topic because, again, many introverts and many extroverts look at introverts and think, oh, they struggle in social situations. They generally don't think, shoot from the hip and feel comfortable in impromptu conversations. So there's all these negatives, and they can't do this and they can't do that. But the reality is, we're all different. We all have our strengths. Everybody has strengths and areas that they're not strong in. And we just have to discover those. For years, I kind of hid my strengths because I thought they weren't really necessary or needed in the workplace. And I tried to put a mask on every day and pretend I was an extrovert. Once I discovered the
Mm.
strengths, then I was able to apply them and realize that actually diverse work teams, they need my strengths just as much as they need an extrovert strengths. So some of the strengths that are really common, so everybody's different. So every introvert doesn't necessarily have all these strengths, but some of the strengths that are very common is we're generally great listeners and observers. So people might look at us in a meeting and think, oh, that person's really kind of tuned out. They're not pounding their fist or being dominating the talking space in a meeting. But we observe, we listen, we learn, we love to learn, and we end up piecing those bits and pieces in a meeting together in order to come up with unique perspectives that many other people that are just kind of thinking off the top of their head, they miss those things. And so it's important that the meeting leader and the team leaders encourage that sort of participation from the introverts in the room as much as the other people in the room. Another strength is planning. So it's not only a strength, but I think many introverts would say it's a necessity. So we are generally really good planners. We plan for meetings, we plan for social events and networking. And it's also really important that we do, because if I'm going into a meeting and I don't know much of anything about it except for a title, I'm not really prepared. So I'm not very comfortable. I need time and space. So if I'm going to participate in a meeting, I really need some time to think about what I want to share. So I really encourage introverts to ask for an agenda and to ask for pre-read. If it's a somewhat complex topic, ask for some pre-read. Spend some time and look through all that. Come up with some of your questions and concerns and items that you might want to add to the conversation. Then you come into a meeting armed and ready to participate in that. You may still have the option to say, I need a little bit of time after the meeting to think about this other question, but it's that preparation that we're not only really good at, but we really need in order to participate in those kind of settings and feel comfortable to do so. Um, I think the third one I'll mention, and then I'll talk a little bit about how do you find out about these strengths. The third one is thoughtfulness. It kind of groups in thoughtfulness, collaboration, team player. These sort of softer skills that, frankly, many work teams need. Right, the years
Oh
of command and
God, yeah. On
control.
every application they ask you that.
Right, right. And the years of command and control in corporate settings is thankfully not completely behind us, but it is moving behind us, because
Right.
employers, employees, customers know that you need to have a more collaborative arrangement. Introverts tend to be more empathetic and thoughtful, not saying that extroverts can't be, but introverts tend to listen and observe and understand people's motivations and perspectives. And that makes for a different dynamic of a team. And frankly, it makes for great team leaders in many cases, which would surprise many introverts to hear that and surprise a lot of extroverts to hear that. But it is true. And those skills we shouldn't be hiding, but these sort of strengths or talents, we need to figure out how to grow them, how to practice using them at work and at home and in social situations, and how to really leverage them so that we're a valued participant and we're confident and proud of what we can do um, with others around us. Um, the One of the ways you can find out these strengths is I have a quiz on my website. So the website is beyondintroversion.com. So if you go there, there's a free quiz on the website. You can take the quiz. It asks you, I think, about 20 questions or so, and it comes back with a report that says, of the 8 strengths, so we just talked about 3 or 4, but of the 8 strengths, here's kind of how your answers indicate you are in these 8 different strengths. We're not all strong at all 8 of them by any means. It's more of what are the 3 or 4 strongest ones that resonate with me, that I can really say, yeah, that is actually a strength. I might not have practiced it yet, but I can definitely relate. And then the report also talks about how can you grow those strengths and use them, and some of the cautions about how you may be careful about using some of those strengths. And I think it's really powerful, because to turn that table around and say, it's not a curse, but it's a blessing to be an introvert. And we don't have to wear that mask, but we actually need to be our true selves. The company needs us to be our true selves as well. It's really a powerful statement for all of us.
What do we do about somebody says I look shocked? No, not really. This is just very interesting to me. Um, what do we do since we deal a lot with partnerships, relationships here, and a lot of the people that are single, they really want to find somebody. But especially the guys don't seem to really want to put themselves out there.
Mm.
What is that a component of being an introvert, or is that more into the realm of being shy?
I think it can be a bit of both, or one or the other. I would certainly say I grew up as a shy, socially anxious introvert. But some of the differences between those three is that an introvert is actually a part of our DNA. It's part of our genetic makeup, actually. There's been a lot of medical studies that talk about the brain chemistry that each of us have, and it's very different between introverts and extroverts. And extroverts crave, they need that social interaction. Introverts crave and need the kind of one-on-one time, solo time, reflective time. Doesn't mean that they both don't cross over a little bit, but they need that. So introversion is not something that you can say, I really want to get rid of my introversion. there's really no way you can get rid of your introversion. And I hope you wouldn't want to, because you have a lot of strengths because of it. Shyness and social anxiety, there are ways you can manage that, right? Those are not genetic sort of things. They are based on our environment, maybe based on situations at school or a bully or whatever the case may be, and nerves. And so practice and sometimes therapy and other things can help us to manage those sort of things. I think that as far as relationships are concerned, I always feel like people have a better opportunity to enter a relationship when they are confident. So when they're confident about who they are as an introvert, so they're learning about some of their strengths and applying them, then they have a lot more to give to a relationship. But I also think that it's maybe a different way to approach finding that relationship as an introvert than an extrovert. An extrovert may want to go to the bars, some people still do, or they go to large cocktail hours because they love to hop around and meet a lot of people, and hopefully somebody clicks and they go down that path. Introverts, if they try and do that, and I joined my friends and tried to do that, not a very comfortable thing whatsoever. And I'm generally probably not going to be successful in meeting somebody if I'm really uncomfortable and lack
Right.
confidence
That's
anyway.
gonna just you're gonna exude that energy.
Yeah. So one of the things I talk about is networking intimacy. So I think that applies whether it's for dating or friendships or work arrangements and socials as well. For us, we need to have networking intimacy. So we need to narrow that room down to one, two, or three other people. And then it becomes less overwhelming. And it's just a personal, intimate chat between myself and one or two other people. And so we can, chit chatting is not a fun thing on the introverts Christmas list. It's not something that we enjoy. We do it because maybe we have to do it, but we'd
Right.
rather kind of cut to the chase and let's talk a little bit more details. Tell me about yourself. Tell me why you enjoy this job. Tell me some exciting things you're doing, and we get to know each other. And so then you can really tell if maybe we're clicking and hitting it off. It's hard to do that in a big environment, and it can be intimidating and overwhelming for anybody. But when it's one-on-one and you've got somebody who wants to participate in that sort of conversation as well, it's a lot easier to find that relationship, I think.
Gotcha. Um, Shay, can you handle that person that just came into the chat room, please? Let's set the room up so that you guys can ask Steve a question. So if you have a question, just type question first and then your question, and I'll put it on the screen for him to see. Um, I'm trying to, I guess Shay can get rid of this individual. It's, I'm sorry, this is distracting me because I don't like when people come in doing stuff like that.
Mm.
What is the issue though if you're going to be an introvert and you have to stand up for yourself? There are like boundaries and things in relationships and even at work where
Mm.
you have to, back people up and or put up a bottom line. Do introverts tend to have a problem with that? Is that something that you've run into?
Yeah, I think introverts generally don't crave conflict. We would generally steer away from conflict. That can be fine. We can tactfully have discussions without having a conflict necessarily. But there are some times in work and in social environments where we do have to have that discussion and have to have that bottom line. And so I think for me, I always found that difficult. I was at a large company for 30 years, and I was a team leader for more than half of that, and I found that difficult. But I found that the way I could manage that was I wanted to be personable and learn and be thoughtful. So I wanted to ask a lot of questions about the situation first. I wanted to make sure the other party understood kind of where I was coming from. And it wasn't an ego thing or anything like that. I'm just trying to solve the problem or understand the issue, and then to try and develop solutions together. Eventually, it may get to a point where we just do not see eye to eye, and perhaps um, somebody needs to make a decision, and those may not be easy decisions to make. But I always wanted to do it where at least it was a respectful way, and so the process of making sure we have that conversation besides just putting down the law and saying, hey, this is it, especially I'm the leader. And so this is what you need to do. At the end of the day, you might have to say that,
Right.
but that's not the best way to lead for anybody. And for introverts, we really would benefit from learning about the situation, planning the discussion. I talk in one of my books about when I was a supervisor at a Detroit distribution plant, and I was really early on in my career and really hadn't connected with my introversion either. And somebody came in that was not really performing, and I just laid into them. And they laid into me, and it was a horrible conversation. And I was not prepared, and I was not authentic. And so, I mean, he walked out, and I just crashed into my chair from exhaustion. And I said, man, I really screwed that up. And I have to figure out, well, what did I do? And how can I do better at that? And I talked to other people, my manager, other supervisors to understand that. But I also went back to this person and decided, it's not a 10-minute meeting that's going to solve this. I need to build that relationship. And so I spent time trying to build the relationship, go on drives with this guy and talk about it, understand his motivations. And at the end of the day, we actually came to be friends and found solutions to common problems. And so it was learning about how to use my strengths in order to do that best.
Tell me about the survey that you did, the quiz. Because you said
Sure.
you had over 1,500 respondents.
Yes.
What kind of things came out of that?
Oh, it's fantastic. It was just fantastic to see so many people take it, because I think that for the vast majority of them, it was maybe something new that they hadn't heard. Maybe they knew about one strength, but they really didn't really have an understanding that there are so many strengths that introverts have. And so hopefully that can be a bit of a life-changing moment where they can say, oh, I'd never thought about that, but I am a great planner. So how can I actually use that instead of feeling like that was something I wanted to hide? And so it really made a difference in a lot of people's lives. And so I think that is something that we continue to get a lot of people taking the survey, because I think it has the opportunity to really open up some new pathways for them.
So that's the same survey that's still on your webpage now.
Right. There's that survey, which is our talent survey. There's a leadership survey, so it talks more from a corporate perspective on how you lead and what your skills and talents are for leading, and what areas you might want to strengthen as an introvert leader. So that's a separate quiz that's available free. All of it's free on the website, and I'm working on another quiz for the spring. So I think that it's a great way for people to just learn about themselves and how they can develop further.
Okay, we got room for questions here. If you guys want to ask Steve a question, this is the time. Just type question. It looks like I accidentally blocked a couple of people that I did not mean to. Oops. They're going to be upset. Okay, here we go. Here's a question from Kiki. I can only argue so much before I start swinging on people. Kiki, violence does not work. How could I not do this again at work? Did you really?
Mm.
Wow. I can't say that I've ever argued to that level on the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. I think especially as an introvert, I would say, a lot of things we've already talked about. We need to plan and feel comfortable that we're talking from a position where we understand the situation. So asking questions is great. Certainly advocating our position as well is certainly viable. If I feel, or if anybody feels that this is getting out of control, and then chances are it is. And when that's the case, there's probably not anything good that's going to come out of the conversation, and actually may deteriorate the relationship even further. And so I think it's perfectly fine whether you're the manager or the somebody that reports to the manager in the room for the discussions, to say, I think I need a break. Let's just both cool off, take a break. Let's come back tomorrow or some other time, maybe with another person as a mediator if it really is a difficult conversation, maybe in a completely different environment. Maybe helpful to go walk around on campus or go grab a coffee instead of going into a meeting room and putting on the gloves and get ready to take somebody on.
Rumble.
So yeah, I think lean on those strengths of thoughtfulness, even if you don't like the person, you're trying to solve a problem or build a relationship that you need at work, and so it's worth the investment.
She says as a follow up that she was introvert. She was bullied badly
Hmm.
um, at her job, and that's why um, that's why she. Excuse me. I did not mean to show that. I am so sorry, Steve.
Okay.
I am trying to remove this individual and accidentally hit that button. Oh my goodness, this is something else. Anyway, yeah, she said she was workplace bullied badly, and that's
Hmm.
why she was, got to that point of frustration.
Yeah, I think that's somewhat common. I mean, workplace, even though we're roughly 50% of the population in workplaces, just like in the general community, that we are that hidden half. And so it feels in most companies like it's 90% extrovert and 10% introvert. And so we oftentimes hide and certainly don't feel comfortable to advocate for ourselves. So I really impress upon people the need to first understand what introversion is really about. Second, really learn the strengths and practice those strengths and use them at work. And then ultimately, when you get comfortable and confident with that, advocate for yourself, and that can be a very positive thing. And instead of hiding, which is very demeaning for somebody, if you feel like I'm not good enough so I have to hide and pretend to be somebody else, that you can
Right,
build that confidence to say, you know what, I am valuable. I'm proud to be an introvert. Here's all the things I can do in a meeting. Look around the next meeting that you're in and you'll see extroverts and introverts, and we need both to be part of that solution and the success of a team. And so to advocate that meetings should have agendas. Meetings should ask everybody around the room, is there anything else you want to contribute to? Meetings should try to encourage people to have a little bit of time and space to prepare and to discuss during the meetings, because that's the best way to do it. And so we need to advocate for ourselves. One of the things that probably my biggest regret in my 30-year career is that for most of my career, I truly didn't do that. I didn't. I understood that I was an introvert, as we talked about earlier, but I really didn't. It took me a long time to really understand the strengths that I really had and the need for me to be myself. And so when I retired, great story, really. When I retired, I had a retirement party, which many people would say, why, how would an introvert have a retirement party? But we do,
I was
trust me.
just thinking that you read my mind.
Yeah, we do. And I had, a lot of people from different parts of my work career there, and we had a good time, and then we toasted and all sorts of other stuff. And toward the end of the evening, they said, well, what are you going to do next? And I said, I really just want to write. I used to write when I was a kid. I had this desire to write. What are you going to write about? Well, I'm going to write about this thread of introversion that's crossed my life and what it's taught me. And honestly, the room went silent. And my friends started to look at each other, and then they started to say, you're not an introvert. There's no way you're an introvert. I've traveled with you. I've had dinners with you. We've been in the trenches. There's no way you're an introvert. And my first thought was, I have pulled it off. What a caper. For 30 years, for 20 assignments or so, people thought I was an extrovert. And then the second thing that I thought really quickly after that was, oh, what a missed opportunity that I hid my true self. My health suffered because of that. And here, all these people that were friends of mine really didn't know me at all. And the last thing that I thought about the next day was, I was a leader for half of my time at the company, and I had a pulpit where I could have not only been a team leader, but helped other introverts in the company to stand up for themselves, learn and advocate for themselves, and help upper management advocate to include these people actively. And I missed that opportunity for most of my career. And I think it's honestly one of the things that drives me in my writing and so forth, is to try and help others to advocate for themselves, accelerate their own journey. It was mid 40s for me when I realized the power of introversion. But for many people, I had an email from somebody from my website just last week. She was 80 years old, and she had discovered, and it turned her life around. She's 80 years old. And, but, I can imagine the difficulties and challenges she had for all of her life. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can be teens or 20s and realize all these things. And so
Right.
if there's an opportunity to accelerate people's journeys, I think we all need to take advantage of that.
We have a question here from Ryan, and she wants to know how can introverts best handle heated debates, not ones where they are necessarily bad, but maybe a person is disagreeable, fast talking, and unfocused on a point.
Yeah, so I think it's a common one, and so as you can tell, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, we don't really relish conflict. So my human nature might be, I'm going to leave now, but that's not really the solution. But it might be that it's part of the solution. If it's a topic that we're not familiar with, or we're not prepared to have a professional debate about, then we might say, listen, I'd love to talk to you about this because I think we can benefit from each other's perspectives, but I need a little bit of time. So why don't we plan some time tomorrow or later in the week or whatnot to come back together and we'll talk more about it. So I have some time to prepare. The other person understands I am a willing participant in this discussion. You can also ask questions. What are you thinking about? Trying to calm it down, right? So other people may be fast talking and pushy, and so if we try and do that to match their level of energy, we're probably not going to win that battle, and it's all going to kind of get very frustrating. So try and calm it down with some slow talk, and I understand, and ask questions, and yes, I hear you, and I'd like to talk more about this. And asking questions also may give you the time to participate in developing some solutions or in challenging their positions. But if you need more time, ask for more time. I'd much rather um, have to come back tomorrow or so with the discussion than to kind of ad lib it, make up stories and things that really didn't explain my position well. And I regret having that conversation. So if you're prepared, then do that. If you can tone it down, that might help you. And if not, then just table it and come back in another day or two and be prepared. Do your homework and be prepared to have that conversation.
That's a good idea in personal relationships too.
Yeah,
Things
right.
start getting a little out of hand.
Mm.
So Amina wants to know what's a good way for her as an introvert to make friends when people are older. She's 42. Do you have any tips and ideas on that?
Yeah, so I think we talked about networking intimacy that applies at work, but it can apply in the social environment as well. So I think the best opportunities are to find people where you are or with things that you like. So if you're a reader, go to a book club. If you love to go hiking, join a hiking club. There's lots of meetups all around the country for almost anything.
Yeah.
And usually they're smaller groups and casual environments, and they're all people that are generally just trying to meet people. And so check out the meetups. Find ones that maybe are smaller, but they are topics that you're really interested in. So it gives you something right away to be able to talk about. So you might have to do a little chit chat at the beginning, but you've got some topics right there that you can talk about to break the ice. And, I think the other thing that everybody, and certainly introverts, need to understand and accept is we don't have to be friends with everybody. Extroverts might really wish they could be friends with everybody, but I think it's fine to say, I went in and I had a chat with this person and we talked a little bit, and clearly we just kind of come from a different perspective. So that's fine. So thanks for the conversation. I'm going to move over and talk to this other person. And so I often talk about it with regard to cocktail hours and socials at work. The extrovert might want to walk out of that big cocktail hour with 100 different business cards. As an introvert, if I can walk out with two or three, I feel very successful because it's probably two or three people that we truly had a bit of a spark there where we understand each other. We're going to follow up. We're going to do business, or we're going to socialize later. And I would say the same thing at these meetups or other social situations is it's not a matter of meeting everybody. It's just a matter of finding those other people in the room that you kind of have a spark with and take it from there.
I agree. Because, like I said earlier, most people just get on your nerves anyway.
I found that the
Too many
older,
people. Especially
yeah,
my brother's like that, Steve. When I go visit him, it's like his house is like Grand Central Station. He's constantly on the phone. I
mm,
mean, people just love him.
mm,
Just he's been like that since he was a baby. This is my youngest brother. In a stroller, people would stop and want to talk to him, and it's that same way now. I don't know what it is, but I
mm,
can't do it. When I go to his house, I just go in the room he has for me. I close the door and I stay in there by myself for a couple of hours. It's just too many people. It's just
yeah.
too much going on.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. I think that we have. I saw a question, and maybe it was one of the ones that got deleted or fell down lower on the list. But I saw a question about the energy level of introverts that popped up on the list maybe 10
Oh, I
minutes
missed
ago.
that one.
And and I think that kind of talks a little bit with your experience with your brother, because I think that energy level is really important. We all have a certain amount of energy when we wake up, and we gain energy during the day and we burn energy during the day. And for extroverts, they gain energy by being in groups. They love to pop into somebody's office and have water cooler talk, and at the end of the day, let's go grab a beer, and then maybe we'll go out for dinner. And the introvert, is fine to do the meetings and do the work, and oftentimes loves the work, but every once in a while we need our break. We need a little bit of time to boost that energy up. And for us, it may be a walk around the floor, a walk around campus, or I'm going to just meditate for a while, or I'm going to listen to some music, or I'm going to journal for just a couple of minutes. But things that just help us to just pause the hyperactivity of the day and just recollect and boost our energy. A lot of people say, well, I'll do that when I get home. But if we go all day, 9 to 5, or whatever the hours may be, by 5 o'clock, really by 2 o'clock, we're probably exhausted. Definitely not the best person, and the best contributor at work at that point. And
Right.
it's not really fair for us. And it's really not fair for the family at home that gets the remnants of you, because you are completely burnt out by the time you crawl through the door. So I think it's really a matter of understanding what boosts your energy and trying to find time during the day. I used to book meetings kind of back to back through most of the day, because I thought that's the most efficient way. That's kind of what I'm supposed to do, is have meetings and be with people and all that. And it was horrible. And the problem, even
Oh,
if you
I'm so
enjoy
sick
what
just
you're
hearing about it.
yeah, yeah. But even if you enjoy what you're doing in those meetings and you're prepared for those meetings, it's just high energy, and it drains people throughout the day. And so at least build in 15, 30 minutes in between meetings to catch your breath, take a walk, relax, do some planning, which can be actually very therapeutic for us. Do some things that will help boost that energy and be prepared for the next meeting. Otherwise, it's a recipe for disaster at the end of the day. So we might think, well, the most productive I can be booked up all day long, but it's really not the most productive or healthy way to approach the
I
day.
hate meetings. This is my
Mm,
secret. I
yeah.
hate them. I hate them. I mean, with a passion. So when somebody used to say, "Oh, let's have a meeting," I would flip out like I was 2 years old.
Well, and you're probably right. The vast majority of meetings really don't need to happen, or they don't need
Yeah.
to happen with 20 people in the room, right?
Oh,
Um,
send me the
mm,
Cliff Notes version in the email. That's all I just. I don't torture me like this.
yeah,
We have
I mean,
another
I know.
question here.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
She wants to know if introverts are more prone to working independently, or are they good at multitasking?
I would say, generally prone to working independently. Yes. If I have time where I'm working on a project, I'm in my office, that's a peaceful time. I enjoy that time. I don't feel like I'm on stage, or I'm not, I'm actually gaining energy instead of burning energy when I'm in a meeting with a bunch of people. However, we can also be good at working with other people. It goes back to sort of the learning approach and the planning and preparation, because nobody works in isolation all the time, and
Right,
nobody really wants to do that. I think the last couple of years probably teach even the most introverted people that we really do need people. We just need it, in certain doses. But we can't do everything all by ourselves and be successful. So I think that we certainly can multitask. I'm not a big fan of multitasking, actually. I used to do it a lot at work, and I think people expected you to be able to do, yeah, you got five balls in the air, and yeah, there's a lot of things going on. But I've really found that if I have three projects, that maybe for the first 2 hours of the day, I'm going to focus on one of those projects, and I'm going to get that all done, or at least what I needed to get done for the day. And then I'll take a break. I'll focus on the second project, and I'll do whatever I need to do for that for the day, and then I'll go to the third. And I get a lot more done because I'm focused than I'm bouncing back and forth trying to do a little
right,
bit on this one. And then I get an email that sends me to the third project, and I do. And so I would encourage people to multitasking is not necessarily the solution to productivity, although, we're all juggling things and sometimes we have to do that.
right. Well, Steve, I want to give you an opportunity to, kind of sum things up. about introverts, and then remind everyone once again where they can find out more information about what you do and
Sure.
find you on your website.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me, Deborah. It's been enjoyable to talk with you and great to field
And
all the
very
questions.
educational. I learned a lot of stuff I'd never even thought about.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think it's one of those subjects that not a lot of people talk about because a lot of people aren't prepared to talk about it or comfortable to talk about it. But I think it's so important, especially for the half of society that are introverts, but also for the extroverts in the world as well, to have an appreciation that everybody's different and everybody has a lot of strengths that they bring to the
Right.
table. So as far as parting shots, I mean, I really think that it's I would encourage people to learn. You know, pick up a book, check out a website, take a quiz, whether it's mine or somebody else's. But if you feel like you're an introvert and feel like you're still struggling to understand what that means or how that's a positive, or if the statement that it's a blessing, not a curse, really baffles you, I understand. I've been there, and I would encourage you to learn about it. And then it can really turn your life around and relieve a lot of the stress, and suddenly you find authenticity instead of having to wear that mask. So I would really encourage people to take that journey. Once you start taking the journey, it can happen very quickly, and be a beautiful thing. Don't wait till you're 80 years old to have to take that journey. Um, what you can find on my website are weekly blogs. So we have a wide variety of topics that we cover throughout the blog. So every week we have a different topic. We also have the quizzes that we talked about earlier. I have my books available. And actually now, if you sign up, you get a free book. So the third book I wrote is a 100-page booklet that's entitled "The Questions Introverts Ponder and the Answers Extroverts Need to Hear."
Ooh.
And it really helps for introverts that may not be comfortable or haven't yet talked with other introverts to understand, hey, I'm not alone, and actually this is a positive thing. And some of the things that I do that I might think are quirky, actually a lot of other introverts feel the exact same way. And so I think that's really helpful. And I also think, whether you hand that booklet over to an extrovert, which you're welcome to do, or you advocate for yourself with extroverts that you work or live with, that it also gives them a perspective of, we're not some strange animal. We're not different. We're not icicles, narcissists, and wallflowers either. We're just people like everybody else that wants to contribute and be respected, be authentic. And the world needs us as much as anybody else to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely. Balance is necessary. Well,
That's
thanks
right.
so much, Steve, especially for donating your time and being such a trooper. You guys notice he's sitting on the couch. The poor man is injured, but he still showed up. Still
I'm doing
showed up
fine.
and gave it 100. I got to give you props, dude.
Thank you. Wouldn't miss it.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for coming. Okay, we'll
Sure.
talk to you real soon, Steve. Thank you.
Take care.
So, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I know a lot of you were looking forward to having him here. And it was really very educational. And when I said I learned a lot, I was not kidding. It's just a kind of a topic. We're having a lot of topics like that during this February, of things that I just don't really, we don't really think about. I mean, we use the term introvert and extrovert, but how many times have you actually sat there and thought about, well, which one am I? And what does that mean? And what are the qualities of each one? And how do I navigate the world? And what does that mean as far as my relationships and work and stuff? That's why I was happy to have him here. So you got all those answers, all of you who are looking for them. I hope that you're excited about that. Let's see what we got. So tomorrow, so this was Steve today, and tomorrow we're going to have Elizabeth talking about imposter syndrome. And generally, that's where you're in a position, you achieve something, but you're kind of wondering if you really deserve it. If people aren't going to find out that you're a fraud, and so a lot of you will turn around and sabotage yourself. It may even be in a relationship where you feel like the person that you're with is too good for you, and that they're going to find out that you're not who they think you are, or something. It's a very interesting state of mind. So Elizabeth is going to be here tomorrow to talk about that. And then the day after, we're going to have Reagan in to talk about narcissism and how that plays out in relationships and what to do about it. So we got two really great shows and a lot more stuff still coming up for our final week of February. I hope you guys, stick around. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please become one. Just hit that subscription button, hit the like button on the video of this one or any other feel free to share. We definitely appreciate that. And come on by tomorrow. It's in the afternoon, so check out the show link, and set a reminder for yourself to get a little notification to your phone so that you will remember to come by and listen to the show. It's a nice live stream. I'll see you guys tomorrow.